were there any other topics that we didn't cover? Because we've been going for a good time
Yeah,
now. I
so
don't
we
want to.
talk about what happens when you leave, when you get out and you return back to civvy life, as they like to call it in England, and how it feels for some people, when they've left and their experiences and other things. I mean, I'm sure you had a different experience because you seem still, still like a happy person, and that's all right. I used to get really nervous about doing these, but I'm not bothered anymore.
It's great.
Yeah.
Just take some practice. Didn't really want to be bald.
Good. The main man. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm just so jealous of your hair, to be honest. It's just amazing.
I was in the Marine Corps. People are like, you're in the Marines? I'm like, I was in the Marine Corps. You don't believe me? You're out of your mind.
And you had to shave off that beautiful hair for years, didn't you?
I did. All right, well, we're already recording. So, hey, everybody. Welcome to another lovely recording of the morelawsmoreproblems.com Brandon Bonanza in conjunction with Kayleigh. We don't have a name for you yet, do we? Do we have a name or a nickname or anything for you yet?
Calfee.
Killer Kayleigh in Melbourne. She's killing it down in Melbourne. So how's last time we talked to you? They were ramping up for the lockdown and everything. How's that been going?
Oh, we had a very long lockdown here, stage 4. It went on for I don't know, let me think, 3 months or something like that.
Yikes.
Yeah, stage 4 lockdown. But, I got through it and we're all open now. Everything's back to normal. Everyone's enjoying the summer.
Oh, really?
And everything is great. Now it's just the mask thing. That's still the mandatory, thing.
I know. I think everybody knows it's watching this.
Yeah.
Unless you're on Mars, which is probably just a light in the sky. Sorry. Anyway, so today we came to talk about, I just wanted to fill our listeners in if they're wondering how your situation was in Melbourne. Yeah, we're kind of the opposite. We're moving into the winter, so we never really fully unlocked down in the summer. And that's what I kind of guessed. And now we're coming to phase 2, the dark winter. And it's a big LARP festival between who's going to be our new slave master, I guess. I don't pay attention, but I guess there was all the slaves got to throw a vote in. I don't know. Anyway, so let's not dissuade all of our listeners. Today we came to talk about our military experiences because both of us had experiences with joining the military. So, and it was your idea. Kayleigh came to me and said, hey, we should talk about our experiences because if there's anybody out there that is considering it, maybe we can, give them an idea what they're in for. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we know how much they like to sell the idea, in adverts. You're jumping out of a helicopter, you're traveling the world, you're having so much fun, life's amazing, you get your uniform paid for, your life's paid for. It's brilliant, How can you go wrong? So we're here to talk about the other side of that, the reality, the nitty gritty, the boring stuff, the dangerous stuff, everything.
Yeah, exactly. I think we should start there too with the advertisements. That's a good place because everybody sees those advertisements and have they changed throughout the years. I caught a new one recently for the Marine Corps and it was like a video game almost. I was like, wow, this is crazy. When we were in, it was just a bunch of people, running around with guns, doing cool things and to feud the proud, the Marines, hoorah. And then they had the Army. And that was just a bunch of helicopters they'd show flying around and some tanks. And I forgot what the slogan was. I should probably look it up. What was the slogans for the ones that were in
the UK? Yeah, because I was in the UK at that time. It was I don't know, almost a decade ago when I signed up. I can't remember the slogans. It was that long ago since I paid attention. Yeah, I really don't know. Why? What were they for the States?
I'm trying to think. There was a really catchy one. I can't believe I can't remember right now. This is nuts. Let's see. Our old Army slogan. Let's see what they were. It was like the Marines were the few, the proud, the Marines. The Navy was, it's not just a job, it's an adventure. And the best part about that one was when I was in the Marine Corps, I got to meet a bunch of I mean, I was on an aircraft carrier, so I hung out with a bunch of Navy guys, and they were always like, "It's a fucking adventure," like so sarcastically, obviously. So they're like out there like shoveling shit. It's an adventure, like yeah, hosing down the fucking whatever.
I just had a quick Google for the UK ones, and one of them for the RAF was Rise Above the Rest.
Oh, that actually sounds really like occultish, like I could break down the kind of like symbolism in that.
Yeah.
Oh, I Want You is the big one for the Army with the Uncle Sam, but there's another one in the 80s. I'm trying to think of what it was. But yeah, I think that one, Rise Above the Rest, because if you think about how the archetypes inside our brains are, and you have like the hero archetype, and his job is to rise above. So everybody's like, yeah, I want to rise. Like, who doesn't want, especially somebody in high school, a wayward teen, rise above. You can come. Everything's taken care of. That's kind of how they painted it. And I'll just let the Army thing go, and because it'll come back to me. It'll definitely come back to me because I saw that brainwashing so much. Um,
Yeah, and with the RAF thing, it's pretty clever because obviously you're in a plane, you are rising above people literally because that's what the Royal Air Force is related to. When you mentioned the word team, it gave me a flashback when we were doing training in the sports hall with the PTIs. It was written in like giant letters on the wall. There's no I in team. Oh Lord, some of the stuff.
that's so funny. What's next to it? Like a cat poster where the cat's like hanging. It's like, hang on. Like,
It's a picture of some albatross or something like that. That was a big thing in the Air Force. Was a picture of an albatross on a lot of shit.
oh,
They
yeah.
badge, you know.
Well, think about even the American Air Force. They have the Thunderbirds. That's their elite like trick squadron. Like you heard the Blue Angels. Like the Navy has that, but the Air Force has the Thunderbirds, and that's something that goes back to like Native American stuff and probably further than that.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're in. It's funny because they talk about like cultural appropriation. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
what about the Thunderbirds? They never mentioned that, and they never really mentioned stuff with the military. Like you have Tomahawk missiles, we have Apache helicopters, but the Washington can have a football team called the Redskins. Oh, that's racist. What about the Tomahawk missiles we're using to murder people across the world?
yeah. Right. Oh my God, I didn't even have any idea about that.
And it's funny, I never thought about this. They're using the people who are native to this land and kind of like the prana and their energy of the tools of war and the weapons that they use. They're using that in the name of murdering, and taking land and conquest in other countries and holding territory that, let's face it, doesn't really
Wow.
belong to them. So it's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's pretty creepy.
It's
I've never heard of that before. Yeah.
a lot of stuff in the army, and that's the weird thing about it, was the army was the one who basically exterminated the Native Americans after the Civil War. They didn't really disband. They just kind of moved west, and then after they conquered the West, they set their sights on Cuba and then Spain. The Spanish American War, and we took the Philippines. So it's very interesting when you get into American foreign policy, and that definitely all ties back to this because part of what we were kind of indoctrinated in the Marine Corps boot camp, we actually had to learn history. And they always say history is written by the winners, so it was very filtered, obviously, and it was very it wanted you to be very proud in the Marines. It was like indoctrinational. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because we did learn how they were founded, where they were founded. It was founded inside a tavern in Philadelphia, Tun Tavern. And the Marine Corps birthday actually just went by. It was 10th of November, 10 November, 1775. And so we got to learn all about that. And it was nice because we learned about this Marine. His name is Smedley Butler, and he was around I think he joined probably the late 1800s, but he was around for World War II. He was a general by then, and he won 2 medals of honor. He was a real badass, and he actually turned down a third. They wanted to give him a third, and now Medal of Honor, it's a Congressional Medal of Honor. It's what it's called here, and it's only can be appointed by Congress. And once you get it, you have all kinds of like crazy rights and privileges. So most people get it after they die, and then the family can get the benefits. But he got like 2 and had to turn down another one. And the best part is after he got out, he got super anti-war because he saw that all the wars were basically, he was like strong arm for big business. That's how he saw it. I mean, you could take it further how big business works with government, obviously, but this is just what he saw, and he was able to kind of illuminate and shed light on. And it worked in my life because it was a trusted source because I was in the Marine Corps. And then when I looked at what he said after I got out, it was just amazing.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think we should bring this back around though to you and what made you join the Air Force. Like, what were you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll just take a turn in sharing our story and the reasons why we did what we did and where we ended up in things. So, I joined the Royal Air Force and you joined the Marines. So, the different branches kind of, but they still all work together in conjunction, don't they? The Army, the Royal Air Force, the Marines. So your training's a little bit different, isn't it? You know, so for example, I was trained a little bit differently to the Army, but it's still brutal. um, so yeah, so even though I just thought I'd mention, even though me and you were in different sort of branches, it's still connected. So you know, it all leads down into the same direction, I guess, as well. So yeah, I joined the Royal Air Force. I think I was about 25. I'm 33 now, so 25 still, well, maybe even 24. I was still quite young, really, looking back on it. And I joined just because, you know, I liked aeroplanes and traveling, and I thought, why not work on one? Why not be an air hostess for Jetstar? That would be easier. No, I wanted to join the Royal Air Force because it was sold to me kind of as, you know, you'll get all these benefits. You know, you'll have your uniform paid for, your council rates reduced, you'll get free McDonald's. No, joking. What else was it? Obviously, the higher pay. You get looked after. You know, it's a community in the forces. You're all family. You'll get to travel the world. Also, yeah, because I've got a son as well, I would have got housing given to me on base, so like a house with a garden, and my son would have been given private education. This is before I was awake and I understood what education really is, but at the time it seemed appealing to me because I was like, wow, my son gets to go like to a private school, but it was like 30% off the fees or something. It wasn't completely free, but it was like you get a huge reduction compared to cities or civilians, you know, when they send their kids to. It was like a boarding school, but like he didn't have to stay over there all the time, only if I was serving somewhere, you know, in another country and he couldn't come. And so it all appealed to me, and I just thought, this sounds perfect. Action-packed career, travel the world, you get reductions and all these benefits. You can get your driver's license paid for, you can get your university and college courses paid for if you decide to do any studies while you're in there. It sounds perfect, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, you only have to bomb people or shoot people in return.
It sounds like a pretty neat trade-off here. We'll pay for your school. Just kill this guy real quick.
Exactly. But you know what? I don't know about you, but I never thought that I would come to that. Like, you know, I was just thinking, oh, I'm going to be an air hostess on the plane. I'm not going to have to shoot and kill anybody. It's fine. Like, yeah, you know. So, yeah, so that was the reason why I joined. So, how about yourself?
Well, it was a little different for me. I was a little younger, and I think generally men mature slower than women. So you at 24, 25 are probably like 15 years ahead of me when I was 18. You know what I mean? Like when I joined, or 17 actually when I joined, and then became 18 and went in. But I was so growing up, I was a really big fan of history, and I was always like a fan of the American Revolution and all this stuff. I was like, ooh, Rob, ready to go. And I always liked to watch the movies and the Marines, and I always thought it was badass. And I kind of had this feeling that it was like part of what I had to do, or what I was supposed to do, or what I was kind of called to do. So I just was conflicted with it the whole, like, I didn't know if I was always going to join, but it was something that was always in the background. Then as I got older, it just seemed apparent I needed to do something and get the hell out of where I was. And I knew if I went to college that I'd probably just party and fail, would be a waste of money. And I didn't really have the money. My parents probably really didn't have the money at the time, so it would have been loans and all that shit. So I figured I'd join the Marines because, like you said, they throw all these benefits at you, and it's like, you're a hero now. Don't worry, Vietnam was so long ago, and that's the only time they ever yelled at soldiers was at Vietnam, and that's the only time it was ever okay. Uh, and now it's, we got to praise and worship them. But when I was in, it wasn't really praise and worship. It wasn't like this. People weren't bending over backwards to kiss your ass to thank you for your service because you're in the military, because that's the temperature that it is right now in the United States. Like, when I say I was in the Marines, people are just like, thank you for your service. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're welcome. Like, you have no idea what I did. Like, what did you do today? Thank you, sir, for your service. It puts people in an awkward situation. We actually talked about this in my other podcast, the Podophiles podcast, a couple episodes ago. But so I think all that growing up, and then the need to get out of here and something to do, and the adventure of it was kind of like, yeah, and they're real willing to do it. Like you said, you get everything paid for. They tell you, you're going to get your uniforms, all your food's free, your room and board. You don't have to worry about anything. You could save all your money. Yeah. All these things are actually true. They're not lies. It's just that when I'm young, I don't realize what half truths are, and I don't also realize that they could be leaving things out. Like, why wouldn't they tell me? But I wasn't that naive about boot camp and stuff. I knew it was going to be brainwashing. I knew it was going to be crazy. I saw Full Metal Jacket. I knew people who were in. They would explain to me. And then I also had this conversation with somebody that I worked with, because I worked at a grocery store, and this girl there who I really valued her opinion, because I was kind of like, I was somebody who, I was like in both worlds, because I was like kind of a dork, but then not. Like, I had friends. My friends were people who weren't, but then it was really weird. So I was in both worlds, and so she was like kind of on the outside outskirts, which I like. I mostly hung out with people like that because they're really open. And she was telling me about one of her friends that joined the Marines and like had to clean up bodies off this beach. She's like, you don't want to do it. It's crazy. And I was just like, I don't know. I was believing too much in the whole myth of the United States. And I was like, I want to do my duty and all this. So I bought into that degree, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I wasn't fooled to that degree. So I actually did really well in boot camp because of that. But yeah, the brainwashing, and then the movies, like, now looking back, it's so crazy how they do it, because it's not like they don't show you the bad stuff, but the way that they glorify it, or the way that they allow it to be glorified, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. Even they had the advert on TV in England about signing up, and the advert was just, 1 minute, but with short bursts of clips, like I said, of people jumping up down rung ladders out of helicopters, and things that look really fun. And it's kind of like that, isn't it, when they sell it to you, and that you're bombarded with those kind of things, and you're like, whoa, that looks fucking awesome. Like, yeah, come on. And actually, in truth, I even had people tell me a lot of it can be really boring once you're signed up. Some people were actually sat in an office doing administration in the end, and they were like, yeah, it's not what I signed up for, but I'm here now. So we can even, not only can it be blood, guts, gore, and trauma, it can actually even be really fucking boring for some people. They joined up to jump off a boat into the fucking sea, and and then they end up in an office.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And I think that that's another reason why, when you thank somebody for their service, it's like, there's people that just, I mean, not that it doesn't need to be done and all this stuff, but I don't know. It's just kind of a strange, it's like a brainwashing technique, I guess. This way you can kind of make people feel good about themselves. But not really get to have a conversation with them about what they went through or what happened and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. So I guess that's kind of why I joined. And trying to think what else. My uncle was in the Marines. And honestly, I'm not even here to say that I regret joining or wish I didn't join. I just, basically I'm here to talk about what it's like, the truth of it, so you really know before you get into it. And it's a real different time now than when I was in 1994 to 1998. So a lot of things have changed in the world. In a lot of ways, it's still the same. It's just more in our face, I think. But there's definitely a lot more going on in the world than there was then, war-wise, as far as the United States being involved. I feel a lot of these places that we are in, that we quote unquote conquer, we're in these wars. I think a lot of them were already places of kind of conflict, and we just moved in to be the new boss. I mean, for sure we did level a lot of places. But anyway, so we're getting a little off track here. But
Yeah, but I just want to say I agree with you. I don't regret joining at all. I actually feel like it was part of my life journey, to be honest. And you know, um, at least we can say now, for other people who don't believe, we can say, well, actually, you can say more than I did. I didn't stay beyond boot camp or basic training, as we call it. You stayed. How long did you serve for?
I did 4 years of active duty service, and then you have 4 years it's called like inactive, where you're basically just on a list. They can call you up.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah, we had the same thing. So yeah, you served for a lot longer than I did. I can only really talk about the training, and then friends who told me about things when they passed the training and things like that. But yeah, I don't regret it either. The funny thing is though, so when you get given your date to pack your shit and travel to boot camp. I got given the date after you'd done all your tests and things, your fitness tests, your medical, and all that stuff. And my he was my ex at the time, but we were still friends. And he came to me about 2 weeks before I was due to go down, and he he gave me a link to whatonearthishappening.com and said, "Don't join." Why? And then he was like, "Watch these videos from this guy. Like, this guy's like Mark Passio." I was like, I'd never heard of him. I'd never been truth bombed in my life. I was not into conspiracy theories or truth, whatever, at all. I wasn't like that. And I was like, why? And he's like, it's the devil's work. It's Satan. You just shouldn't go. And I was like, nah, I've already made my mind up. Like, it's happening. And he went, just watch these videos. Can you please just watch them? So I watched one of Mark's videos about Freemasonic symbology and the checkered floor and how they use that symbology on police uniform and things. And I was addicted right away. And I spent like the next week every night watching these 3-hour videos. And he was talking about how they call the military their dogs, the elite dogs, and that's why you wear a dog tag. And I was like, oh my shit, fuck. Oh, all right. Well, this changes things, doesn't it? But I absorbed everything. But I said, look, I'm actually still going because when you first get woken up and it's there in your brain, but you're not living by it, if you know what I mean.
yeah, I talked about this last night. Actually, I know what you're talking about.
Did you? All right. So yeah, it was kind of like that, and so I still went. And actually, again, I'm glad that I went because I could see firsthand the truth. Like I could see firsthand the tactics that they used on us because I'd watched all Mark's stuff. I was then aware of every single thing they told us to do. I was aware of every single symbol that was used in the uniform and on badges and colours, the colour schemes of uniforms and the areas. And then I was aware of the fact that we were sent to a boot camp that was kind of in its own little bubble. We weren't allowed to see friends and family for the first 4 weeks. So for the first month, we weren't allowed to leave that, that camp. And also we had one bar of phone signal where we were, and I'm sure they did that by design so that we couldn't connect with friends and family away from there, when we were upset or we'd had a hard day, I used to call up, and it was really shocking signal. So we couldn't even really talk to my family about it. I had to talk about my the other cadets about it and stuff. You kind of forced into this bubble where you have to connect with each other, and they become your new family, don't they? I don't know if you had the same thing. So that
Yeah.
was one thing. Yeah, that was one thing that struck me first of all. And Mark Passio did mention about isolation. He did say and even with police training too, you got 6 weeks of that, I think, and you're just all together in this really difficult situation. And when you think about it, that's what they want. They want you to rely on your new family, so that when you're sort of on the battlefield, you're disconnected from the outside world, and you only have your military life. Because they even give you, I don't know if you had the same thing. We had two lockers. One was a civilian locker and one was a military locker, and we had to keep them separate all the time. And actually, the sergeants would go in and inspect those and make sure you hadn't mixed those compartments. And that's kind of like, don't mix these two areas of your whole life. You've got your military life and you've got your civvy life. Don't mix them. So yeah, I was like, that was the first thing that I noticed during the training, and I was like, So a lot of the stuff didn't work on me. A lot of the techniques didn't work on me, because I'd sit there and analyze it all the time. And I even got told that I had no military bearing and stuff like that. But we can go into that in more detail after, because it's a bit of a long ass story. But yeah. So how about yourself? How did you find the training when you first got there and stuff?
Well, it's funny because I'm going to expand on exactly what you just said, but I just want to say for anyone listening who's not familiar with who Mark Passio is, because I would imagine that, but it's, if you aren't, he's go to whatonearthishappening.com. He has a lot of different stuff with occulted psychology information, all kinds of stuff. He breaks down symbolism, and this is what Kayleigh exactly is talking about. And it's really synchronistic that you were able to come across it before you went in, and then you really maybe didn't have the energy or the balls to kind of get out of that situation. But once you were in it, you just were enveloped, and you're like, no way, fuck this. So that's great. I mean, you were able to escape before anything happened to you that you couldn't fix. So that's good. With me, it was kind of similar. They get you there, but Marine Corps boot camp's kind of notorious. So they have this whole thing where there's only two. There's one in Parris Island, South Carolina, and there's another one in San Diego. And what they do is they fly you whatever to the closest airport, and then they drive you on a bus. And we got there at, like, I don't even know what time it was still dark. And you have to get on these footprints. They have all these yellow footprints out, lined up in the way that recruits, like you'd stand to march, and you get on the famous yellow footprints. And then they get you to come in and process. And basically they're just screaming at you the whole time.
Well,
And
right from the get go, you greeted with this screaming thing.
yeah.
Wow.
So it basically, the way it works is it's like you're getting dropped off in Disneyland, and they're fucking in character from get go. So,
Right.
right. And so there's a few people though that when you get there, they're pretty cool. Like, because not everybody's exactly not everyone's a drill instructor, like the guy behind me, right? That's the guy from Full Metal Jacket. So if you're just a regular Marine, like I remember when I first got there, there were like supply Marines that were like giving us our stuff. Now we still had to call them sir and everything, but they didn't really yell at us. They'd be like, get over here or whatever, but they weren't like in our face screaming at us 100, they were just like, whatever. They were like normal, and then whatever. But we still had to call them sir. We still had to stand at attention. So basically when you get to boot camp, you have to stand at attention all the time. Whenever you're talking to somebody, look forward. You can't look at them, and you have to speak in the third person all the time. So you always have to refer to yourself in the third person. You can never say you can never say I. So if I had to go to the bathroom, for example, first I would have to ask for permission to speak. So I'd have to stand at attention and say, sir, Recruit Smith requests permission to speak, sir. Because you always have to say sir before and after everything. Talk about mind control, right? So they get you to basically speak this whole other language. And it's not like this 24/7. So it's like this when you're around the drill instructors, and then when they give you your time, like an hour each day to square away or whatever. So when you're with the other recruits, it's how it is, but obviously. So when you get there, they had this one drill instructor they'd leave you with, and he'd bring you to all the places to do the processing and get all the stuff. And you're walking around, and it's really weird because you're in this whole environment, and there's people walking by and marching because they're the Marines that have been there longer, or the recruits. and they're looking at you like the new guys, and you have like sneakers on, and they give you the camouflage stuff to put in, but nothing's tucked in, everything's hanging out. It looks just gross. Nothing's like ironed, so that everyone could tell you're brand new. It's really funny. So it's like a hazing ritual, really. So and they march you around so everyone else can see you. And if you think about it psychologically, they want the other people to see how far they've gone. And then they
Yeah.
also want you to see that you have all this way to go. So they really mess with you. And when you were saying about the month, so Marine Corps boot camp was 3 months, and it was just shy of 3 months, like a week of shy of 3 months, or maybe 2 weeks. But basically you have no contact with the outside world other than letters when I was in. And then we got like maybe one phone call or maybe two the whole time. So
So that isolation thing again,
that
isn't
is
it?
isolation to the maximum. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's like a cult level isolation, And
Mm.
and like I said, I already talked about the way they speak to you, and the way that they rode me right in the beginning, because I was very loud, because I was told to be loud. They said if you just scream, somebody, not them, I mean, they tell you to be loud when you get there, but somebody told me that's like, be loud as you can, because if they come up to you and they mess with you and you're screaming, they'll just go to the next person, because they don't want to be screamed at either, even though they're pretending, but they don't want to be fucking screamed at. So they'll go to the next guy and fuck with him. So I did that. I lost my voice the first day because I was like, ah, just screaming as loud as I can, and I was running around as fast as I can and doing everything. And they pulled me. They were doing the initial interviews in the first couple of weeks, or the first week or whatever. And the guy was like, "Oh, you're real smart." And he's like looking at my scores, and he was trying to like. Now I see he was like trying to puff up my ego, but I was like buying into it. I was like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "Yeah, you're all this stuff." And then I noticed that whole week they were just fucking with me hardcore. So I just kind of like backed off a little bit, and then they focused on other people, and I just kind of, not that I smoothly sailed through it all, but I just stayed in the middle of the herd, instead of like sticking out. And I really think that was the key. But yeah, they go for that isolation big time, and I think it just goes to the level of dedication, because you were in the Royal Air Force. In the Air Force here, the training is a little lax too compared to the Marine Corps. Now, because in the Marine Corps, they're basically training people to kill people, and not everybody in the Marines is a killer, but a lot of people might have to be. So if they could train everybody to make it acceptable, whereas in the Air Force, it's a smaller group. You have like the pilots maybe, or some of the cops, and then some of the special forces maybe.
Yeah, it's the same in England. Like I said, the Marines were more extreme with the training and what they had to do. I heard some
Yeah, they're
stories, and
crazy.
I was like, I'm really glad that I'm not like joining the Marines. The army is also harsher. The Navy and the Royal Air Force got let off more. There was a reputation of the Navy being wine drinkers and so yeah, it's the same. It was the same in the UK.
That's great. Just like a bunch of drunk fucking English. I was like, "I mine." They're fucking smashing into things. That's great. I love it.
Yeah, no, but like they were more like
Johnny L. All right.
let's sit down and have a tubble of red wine. That was like the Air Force and the Navy's reputation,
Yeah.
whereas I'd say the Marines and the Army were more like you big jugs of beer, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's the same. It's the same thing. So I think you had more of a hard time of it than somebody in the Air Force in the States, for example.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I know, and I'm not trying to say that by any means that the Royal Marines are any weaker than us, because we saw a bunch of Royal Marines. Some came to our base and stuff for some reason. Those dudes, they must have been like an elite force or something, but they were all giant and they were all fucking crazy. I'm like, I'm not fucking with those guys. So yeah, it was
Can I ask
great.
you a question? Is it true that so we had to do the same thing in the UK? Did you have to get all your hair shaved off when you first went?
Yeah, and in Marine Corps boot camp, they actually. So wait, did they have to shave you as a female, or it's just men, right?
No, what we had to do, we had to always have our hair tied flat with a bun and a
Yeah,
hairnet over that, so we didn't have any sort of hair flying around or any sign of being feminine. Actually, when I think about it, you weren't allowed to wear makeup, you weren't allowed to do your nails or nail varnish, you weren't allowed to have your hair out loose.
yeah,
It ought to be the same thing. So I think that's a symbol, isn't it, of taking away your personality and identity. And with you shaving your hair off, that's making you all the same, but it's also taken away. It's kind of like a shame thing. Do you think? Like it's a bit. You feel a bit bare and naked if you've got all your hair shaved off. I can imagine. You know, if you're not used to that.
Yeah, it's very there's a few things there's a few boxes that it checks, Kayleigh, I think. And one of them is to it's a new phrase that I'm hearing a lot that I like. This thing's checking a lot of boxes. One of them, yeah, humiliation for sure, because everybody is used to their identification and what they look like. Their ID is part of them. It's who they are. It's like, think of the movie The Matrix. When you project who you are, it's who you think you are. So they're taking that away from you. They're making everybody the same. They're putting you all on the level playing field. It's really all about conformity, like you said, and they want everybody to conform, be the same. And I got it too. I understood what it was, and I went along with it because I realized if I wanted to be a good Marine, that I needed that training, because I would have to listen to orders. Because if I'm under fire and they say "fucking go," you got to go, you know. But I did keep, obviously, I kept a lot of my individuality, but I did keep it in there. And I noticed that the more individuality I did express, it would attract other people to me. You know, I couldn't really do it in front of the drill instructors and stuff. Obviously, I just fell in line. But in our free time and all that stuff, I noticed it was a really good way to get attention, I guess, and just to get people to, I don't know, really have a good time. I was always kind of a joker, even in boot camp. You know, I was always making people laugh. We had to line up. So this is a funny story I'll tell you. They had the squad bays, so there's 70 of us in a platoon, and we all stayed in the same, you know, giant room. It's like a big long hall basically, and they called it a squad bay. And on each side they had bunk beds lined up, and in the middle was open area, and that's where we would run in and out and do stuff, and people would come through. And so we would line up. There was a line on each side of the beds, like 3 feet from the beds. And every time they called us out to attention, we have to run to that line and stand at attention. So just imagine line of guys one side, line of guys another, facing each other. And the drill instructors would walk up and down and talk shit and whatever. So the guys across from each other, like from me, we would always try to make each other laugh. We'd like make faces at each other and like flex and do all this silly stuff, because if you laughed, you got in trouble. So yeah, we would always do that. And the guy across from me was this, like, he was just huge, like built, but he's really funny, like had this funny personality. So he would always just flex and like, and I would, yeah, it was bad times, but I don't know. I guess he had to be there.
I think we need that. Well, we needed the jokers and the laughs and shits and gigs because it was so difficult and so serious. That one thing that got you through was having the banter or, you know, a laugh with your fellow cadets. You know, that was the one thing I would say made it enjoyable in some way, is the banter and the laugh that you had with your your fellow cadets, because it gets you through, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So
for
I think
sure.
we kind of needed people like you.
Yeah, there was a guy who was like really serious too, and we always used to tell him, you know, you gotta joke. And he's like, you can't joke around about this, you gotta take this seriously. Like, and like I said, in our own time, we had like square away time. We had an hour at least each day, and then after they went to bed, we were supposed to go to bed, but you could stay up, and as long as you weren't loud. But he would always be like, you have to take this seriously. And then one day he just they were riding him hard for something he did, and he snapped. He like tried to escape and all this stuff. Yeah. So
Oh,
he
God.
was like,
Wow.
he came back one night in a bathrobe, like shaking. We're like, I haven't seen a bathrobe in 2 months. What the hell? Like he was in the hospital, I guess. So I'm like, yo, I guess I was right. And the best part was he was 6'5", and so once he got like left or kicked out, I was the tallest after that, because I was like the second tallest. Yeah, bitch, you get out of here.
The thing is, I don't know if you have the same thing. I noticed with the humour side of things, the corporals and sergeants actually had a bit of a dark humour. They like to pick on people. Did you
Oh
get the
yeah,
same thing?
they were
Yeah.
hilarious. And the problem
They're
is
not funny.
they were so funny, but we couldn't laugh. That was the thing. They would just crack jokes at the weirdest times, and you couldn't laugh. Like one time, it was just they were giving us a class about something, and he's like, "Someone open up a window. It's hotter than a nun's cunt in here." And we were just like, we all were just like, because I mean, this was like 1994. Nobody said cunt back then. You know, like I knew what the word was, but it wasn't used really at all. And then to say that, everyone was just like, "Oh my god!" It was, and you know, we weren't watching TV. We had nothing. So this guy was doing this dry, you know, presentation about how to fucking fuck a rifle or whatever. And then he's like, "It's hotter than a nun's cunt." We're like, yo.
That's funny.
And then we all got in trouble for laughing. We all had to like do
Really?
push-ups. Oh yeah, you can't. Yeah,
See,
because
we
the
we
thing is,
we were fine, but they could turn serious at any time, and you had to like go with whatever mood they were in.
mhm.
What were you saying? Sorry.
Well, no, I was just gonna say the reason they did it was because if you're under fire or behind enemy lines or whatever, you have to be able to keep your composure all the time. So they're always poking you because they always wanted you to just, and that's why I'm able to like hold a straight face so well and fuck with people. I mean, I was kind of good at doing it before. Like we always used to do staring contests, but now being in the Marines and all this shit, like, it's like second nature. But
Mm.
you were saying something else. So go ahead. Cause I had something to say
No,
off of that.
we were so they were funny. We laughed and we were allowed to laugh, but then you could go
Yes. Yeah.
in one morning or that afternoon, and the mood would change, especially with the frontliners, because we had to do a second part of our training with the guys who were the frontliners, and they were woo woo, they were cuckoo, like if someone's been gassed, they're not going to exactly be right in the head, are they? Like he had like these little twitches when he was talking because he'd been gassed, and he'd be like talking, he'd be like, and when I'm reading your homework, guys, like, and we just got used to it. But he made us laugh. But then one day, like, we walked in and we'd had a morning of jokes and laughs with these guys, and then the mood changed, and he just got our books and he went, "You fucked all your fucking work up," and he threw all of our books on the floor and he went, "Now go and fucking pick them up." And we had to scrabble around on our hands and knees trying to find our book. And like, it's funny looking back on it now, but like, we could never get too comfortable, because when we did, the mood would change, it would turn sour, and we would be like, fuck shit, like these guys actually are psycho. Do you know what I mean? I
Mhm.
don't know if that was an act or whether because they were frontliners they were truly cuckoo, but the guy, have you ever seen Nightmare Before Christmas? That movie with Jack Skellington?
No. Mm-mm.
So there's a guy in there that he's the mayor, and he's got a head that can turn around, and one's a happy face, and then he can just change it, and one's a bad face. Like that's what they reminded me of, like the mayor out of Nightmare Before Christmas. But some of the jokes he made, they would pick single people out, and it. Don't get me wrong, we did laugh, but it's not exactly you know politically correct type of humor in the forces. They sat us in the room, and they were like, "Oh, so what's your trade? What are you here for? What do you want to be?" And one guy was talking about being working on aerials or something, aerial erector or something like that. And the corporal he went, "You an aerial erector? You're bright fucking ginger. You'll get shot in seconds." And we were like, like me, like we laughed, but it was like you can't just say that to someone in the street. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, it was brutal. It was like full on, and they just talked about your sister, your mom, like it was just, yeah. And there's really like they would take letters of, they wouldn't read your mail obviously, but they would just look at your mail and like smell it, like, oh, this one smells pretty, and like, they were crazy. And oh, you know what else I wanted to bring up too, because you said that you had the two lockers, right, for your civilian stuff. Not for with us, it was, we were like cast away, like going away into a cult, so we had no use for civilian stuff. What we did was the clothes that we basically just went with the clothes on our back, and then we had to put them into a small bag and like put them away. So I was just thinking about that, because you had like the dual lives, whereas we just had to take everything we ever knew, put it in a small bag, and put it away for like the whole time. So we just were,
wow. So you
yeah,
didn't
think
even
about the
remember
symbolism of
before.
that.
Yes, that's talking about just fuck off your old life, throw it in the bin, it's trash.
Well, you get to keep it, but you got to put it in a little box in like a container that you never see till the end. Then they give it to you. It's like,
Wow.
so
Wow,
take the
yeah, that
rest bit of yourself, the rest of your individuality, and here it goes. Now we're gonna shave your head.
yeah, exactly. Talking about ginger things. Hello. Yeah, look, I just like to know I've got nothing against ginger people. That was just what what they would say. It just one thing that it stood out in my mind because I was that shocked by it. You know what I mean? I was that shocked that they would even say something like that. But yeah, so with throwing your old life away in the trash. I mean, that's brutal. But they do, that's one of the techniques they use. I remember another thing that they would do is they would recruit somebody from the girls group and someone from the guys group, because we got separated as well according to your gender. You know, we got put in a block for women and the guys got put in the guys block. And like, what was I going to say with that? Because another story came into my head, which I'll talk about after. Like, you end up going on nights out and getting hammered and trashed, don't you, like the weekends, and spending your money, and then you just end up mixing as a group anyway, the girls and the guys, and then everyone's like having sex with each other because they're just all frustrated and sex starved and bored. And that's the truth. I'm not going to lie. Like, that happens. So they can separate you, but people still end up like getting it on. Do you know what I mean? So many times I've seen that and heard about it and stuff like that. Like, so they can separate you all they want, but I can't remember where I was going with that story about being separated into the blocks. It'll come back to me. Oh, that was right. So they would assess who could be the leader of the girls and the leader of the guys, you know, and they would choose according to how you did doing your circuit training and how you could coordinate a team. They test you, blah blah blah. And they chose one of the girls. Obviously it wasn't me, because I'm shit at stuff like that. I was so short I couldn't even climb over one of the walls. I ended up like getting over a wall on the circuit, and I struggled. And the corporal was like, "If Grace can do it, any of you fuckers can get over that wall. Look at the size of her," because I'm a short ass. and I felt that pride, and I was like, "Yeah, I did get over that wall."
Exactly.
Anyway, so I think what happened with me, word got round about me to the other corporals and sergeants and whoever else was on camp, because the girl who was in charge of us, I would always talk about why they're telling you to do that because they want you to be tired. Do you understand that? They're making us do this because they don't want us to have any free time and connect with our right brain hemisphere. Did you know that? They don't want any creativity, you know. I think she'd been going back and telling the corporals, like, you know, Kayleigh always explains away the things that we're told to do, and she's always got a reason for it, you know what I mean? And I think it got round, and then I ended up being known as the girl who had no military bearing. So I got, like, you know, picked on a lot in it towards the end. But I have a feeling that it's because that girl was running back telling them everything, because they would recruit a spy. That's what I call it, a spy. What are they doing at night time? You know, like, tell us everything that's going on. And she would come back and she would tell us, "Oh, I've been asked to report back," and things like that. So they recruit a spy. And I think, you know, for example, when you get there, did you have to sew your name into socks?
No, I think we had to use a stencil. I think we had to put our name on everything with like a permanent marker.
Yes, we had to do that too.
Yep.
So we had to do that because did you have class as well? Like, you had
Yeah.
to go into a classroom and study, like you said, history and.
Yep. Yeah, we had all kinds of stuff like that. Classes on history, then, like, you know, weapons and survival skills, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to do types of aircraft as well, and
Yep.
obviously because it's the RAF. So we had to stencil names onto all of those books and things. Yeah, we had to sew names into socks. We had to iron uniforms so perfectly. We'd spend an hour on the sleeve of a fucking shirt, for God's sake. You probably have to do the same thing, immaculately ironed clothing and uniform. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how the Marine Corps is. Everything has to be like, if I move, like, if you watch Full Metal Jacket and you look at him, he looks like he's animated almost, because everything is just so perfect. And that's how all the drill instructors looked all the time. They just presented themselves no matter what was going on. They always had a fresh change of clothes, whatever. They'd like run through the showers and get all wet and scream at us, and then boom, come out. And so we were expected to meet that standard. And it was crazy. We'd spend hours and days shining, you know, our good pair of boots, and then we'd get in trouble, and they tell us to put on the good pair of boots and run into we had a sand pit outside of our barracks. It was like a giant sandbox, and you had to get in there and like do push-ups and all kinds of shit.
Yeah, they call it bulling your boots, making them shiny, and you know, and this is what people say. Oh, you're told to do that because they can't afford mistakes in the military, and you need to be on top of everything and on form. Whereas I sat there and I thought, Why would you want fucking immaculately ironed uniform for the battlefield? That's just a load of horseshit. It's there so that you focus on imperfections and make sure that kind of like you're spending your time, your free time, you know, organizing all of that stuff, and it makes you stay up until 1 a.m. doing all this shit because then you'll get in trouble. And then you're up at fucking 5 a.m. to get your breakfast and iron your bed space and put your uniform on right and do everything else. So you're hardly sleeping. You're getting minimal sleep, so you're tired. And that makes you a lot more malleable to them. You're easily controlled when you're tired, you know, because you just take more of a back seat. Also, those kind of things, you don't have free time to sit and read a magazine at night or a book or relax or go on Facebook, whatever it is you want to do in the evenings. No, you don't have time to focus on yourself or creativity, or, you know, it's all left brain domination. It's all remove any imagination, remove any creativity, remove anything about you. It's all focusing on what you have to do for the military. So it makes you tired, unimaginative, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the,
And
yeah.
that moves forward into like your daily life, or like we call it life in the fleet, because once you get into the Marine Corps after training and stuff, they call it in the fleet. So that is a lot of it too. I worked in the air wing, so not as much because we wore coveralls a lot because I fixed airplanes and stuff. So we didn't really wear a lot of uniforms unless it was like a certain dress occasion. But a lot of the other Marines I saw, that was the case. They always had to make sure everything was pressed. So they're up all night making sure, you know, everything's good to go and they look squared away. And yeah, it's crazy. They control your whole life
Oh.
that way. It's a good
Yeah,
point.
and they were very did you have to go and get like go into a room and have like a speech afternoon or something? Like, so someone would come in, a dentist would come and talk to you about how important it is to keep up with your dental health, and because if you don't, if you get an abscess on the battlefield, they'll have to send in a helicopter at thousands of pounds a pop, and you're responsible then for taking away funds and time for, do you know what I mean? Did you ever have
Yeah.
those kind of,
We had stuff
yeah.
like that, all kinds of medical briefings, yeah, STDs, fucking, you know, stay away from this, do wear a condom, all this crazy stuff, yeah. And then that
We never
too.
got told. Actually, we didn't have it that, no.
Oh, they showed us slides of like people who like had advanced stages of STDs, like their genitals. We're like, oh, thank you. Yeah, that was great.
Oh crap! Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. We didn't have that with the dental thing. I did actually sit because I would second guess everything that I was said and told. Then I used to think, why he's saying it. I thought with the dental thing, right? They're talking about, you know, you being healthy. I actually sat there and I thought, I think what it is if you're that mangled on the battlefield or wherever in Afghanistan or wherever it is you've been posted to do your tour. They call it a tour. They don't call it going and bombing people. It's like, oh, I'm on tour in Afghanistan for 6 months. Um, and it's like, I think if you're that mangled up, they need to use your teeth to identify you, don't they? Because you can use people's dental records for it. And I thought that's what I personally thought about that. I thought, well, yeah, you don't want us to have fucked up teeth so that you can identify our dead body. But I don't know if that's the reason. I could be overthinking things. But I remember I shat myself one day because we had this guy come in about insurance. Did you have health and life insurance talks?
Yeah, we had all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he came in and he was talking to us for about an hour. You know how important it is, how you should organize your life insurance. And this is when shit got real for me because towards the end of the talk, he sat there and he was like, "Now, guys, you need to organize your life insurance because shit like this can happen to anybody." And he lifted up his arm and he had a fucking hook for a hand. I'm not shitting yet. He had no hand and he had a fucking hook. And he was like, I got my hand blown off on the I think he said in Afghanistan or something like that. And I sat there and my heart was racing and I was looking at everyone and I was like, this is a bit fucking uncomfortable, isn't it, God? I was like, this is the fucking reality, isn't it?
Yeah, really. It's like, why didn't you tell me that before I joined? Where were you like with the speech with your hook before I joined? Like,
Exactly, 100%. That's why I was like, you're telling me this now, fucking what, like 2 months in?
yeah, they already got you now. They don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had all of those speeches and classroom things, and yeah. So sorry, I'm just like dominating this with training stories, but I don't know if you want to talk about you know, because I didn't finish training, and we can talk about that after, about what happened to me when I left training. But I don't know if you want to talk about the phases you went through. So you had your basic training, then you had maybe phase 2, and then you had the full military career.
Yeah, well, I went to boot camp for 3 months. Then I went home for 10 days. Then I went to a month of combat training because all Marines also have to have combat training. So it's like boot camp, but you get the weekends off. So it's more like your boot camp. So we had to go to our boot camp, and then we went to your boot camp where you get weekends off. You have your own locker. You could, during the week, you had to stay there on base and stuff. Sometimes people left, but like after a certain time, you could just hang out there. It was different. Like the sergeants were there, but you didn't have to call them sir. You call them corporal and sergeant and stuff. And
It's a bit more
so,
relaxed, isn't it?
yeah,
The more phases you do, yeah,
yeah.
it's like that. Yeah.
And what they do is they take people who are going to be their grunts and they bring them to School of Infantry. And then for us, we had combat training. So it was like anyone that wasn't going to be a grunt, we had our own specialized. So what they did was they took us in the woods a bunch. They had us do compass stuff. So it was like a month of that. We did a whole like 10 or 12 mile hike in the snow one time. It was pretty great, like rain and snow. But anyway, so after that, I went to training to learn to fix airplanes for about 6 months, 2 different schools. And then I got to North Carolina, and then I went on an aircraft carrier a couple months later. And I was there for 6 months in the Med. Then I came back and I was in the United States for a year. Then I went to Italy for 6 months, and then I came back and got out. And I would say overall positive experience because I had a good time when I was in, but I got to go a lot of good places and see a lot of things, and I didn't really have to see a lot of bad things, but there were a few moments that really did affect me. And it's crazy that people, the way this whole society looks at the military, it's just really, it's like inverted, like everything else. It's really the total opposite of what's going on. So they tell you that they're supposed to be fighting for freedoms, but when you get there, it's not really the story that matches up. But I think that enough people are able to, I mean, obviously it works because enough people are able to just go along and do it for their tour and do what they have to do. And then it really affects them later, so in the moment they just kind of evacuate and they escape, you
Would
know.
you say they disassociate at that time as well?
Yeah, that's kind of really what it is. It's like they evacuate their cockpit, like they're there but they're not there. And most times we just partied, we would like work all day. Not like I said, I worked on airplanes, so it wasn't anything crazy, but when I was on a carrier, we were bombing people, and I didn't really know it until the planes came back. They would leave and then come back with, leave with bombs, come back with bombs. And one day they came back without the bombs, and we were like, whoa, what's going on? Because they never told us anything. So it was just a really weird feeling to know that, and at the time I thought we were helping people and fighting for the freedom. We were like liberating people. So I felt good about it. But I don't know. It's still, I don't know. It's just weird to see those. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I know I'm not fully grasping what's going on right now, but it's just weird.
Yeah. So do you know anybody who got any PT? Is it post traumatic stress disorder, PT? I always
PTS,
get the word that PTDST, is it? I always get the letters mixed up.
they call
Like,
PTSD,
that's it,
post-traumatic
PTSD.
stress syndrome, I think, or disorder.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Did you did you know anybody who got that from the time, or?
well, when I was in, like I said, we weren't really doing, we were just fixing airplanes and working a lot of hours and not sleeping and just partying. But I know somebody that fell in off the aircraft carrier, and nobody knew he fell in because it was at night, and he was gone for like 2 or 3 days before we realized it. And I guess he got picked up by a fishing boat, by a Pakistani fishing boat in the Indian Ocean, because we were in the Mediterranean. We went down to the Suez Canal to go into the Persian Gulf, but there wasn't really a lot going on at the time. We were there with, there's other stuff. We weren't needed. Our services weren't needed there. There was plenty. So we went back up to the Med because of what was going on in Bosnia. But so yeah, the guy fell off in the Indian Ocean, and he was picked up by a Pakistani fishing boat, like I said, and he's lucky it wasn't now. He probably would have been like, decapitated or whatever. But they brought him back to the village, and he had to call his parents from a payphone. and they contacted the Department of Defense, and they got him back. But it was pretty crazy. He came back on the ship on a helicopter, and he had like all like you would expect somebody that was Muslim to wear, like from Pakistan. It was crazy because he didn't have his clothes. So it was really insane experience that I had. That's one. But I was lucky though, and like what I tell people, it's different right now. It's a lot different. You got to really, if you're gonna do this, you should really look into what's going on and make sure that you're on board with it all.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why are they in Afghanistan? When I was there, Afghanistan was the big thing. Like, why are they really in Afghanistan? And actually, even if you're going to join and you think you don't care about the whys and you just want action and fun, it can be fucking boring, because we used to know people who went on tour to Afghanistan or the Falklands for 6 months, because that's a common thing for the Brits to do, is the Falklands, Cyprus and Afghanistan. They were the three main places that you had to, sort out, kind of thing. And we would get on board. All we do on the Falklands is see penguins and get drunk. And it's like, so it's you're being paid to see penguins, get drunk, and it's like even in Afghanistan, people were like, "Yeah, we're bored. This is boring." So even just for that reason, you're sold that it's a big adventure and you're gonna have fun and bomb people if that's what you want to do. You find that enjoyable. You might even be sat there bored doing fuck all.
There are very few jobs that are actually adventurous or exciting, I would say. Like a lot of the stuff that I witnessed and noticed was all repetition. But like I said, I wasn't in during a wartime, but we worked on airplanes, so it was very repetitious. Everything we did was just over and over again. So it did get boring really quickly. So I see what you're saying exactly. And a lot of the jobs like that, I mean, a lot of jobs in the military are like that. So that's something to be very aware of if you're going to join. You might as well just stick around here and get a job at McDonald's, because that's basically what it's going to turn into, I guess, unless you're in combat or something. But I mean, I
Yeah.
worked on an aircraft carrier, and I worked up on the flight deck, and that was very exciting. I felt like Top Gun for about a week or two. And then after that, I was like, all right, this is fucking old. I feel like I'm running around on the highway right now. Like, so, it's like hot one day, it's fucking freezing the other day. It's like the sun's out, it's 100, and then it's like 30 and snow, and you're like, what the fuck? I mean, not all, but it's
Yeah.
brutal up there.
And,
So it's
and
like,
that's another good point that you bring up, actually. No matter what the weather, rain or shine, you've got to wear that uniform in exactly the same way. When I did my training, it was summer in England, and sorry, Alfie's just fell. It gets really hot in England in the summer. People don't believe me. It can get up to 27 degrees Celsius or something, even 30 very, very rarely. And yeah, so we had to wear the full gear: the woolen socks, the military boots, the vest, the pants, the jacket, the hat, and we were dripping with sweat, because you have to stand to attention when you're doing your what did we call it now? Our drills, when you do this routine for your marching and you've got to perform it for the corporals and whatever. And it was fucking roasting, and we're not allowed to take off a single layer. And you stood there in your black boots and your woolen socks, and the sun's blasting right down on you. It's roasting hot. I mean, we remember we got off for the afternoon. It was about 4 p.m. and we were like, "Corporal, can we sit outside our barracks and just in our shorts?" No, you got to wear full uniform if you're outside. If you're outside your barracks, the most we'll let you do is take off your army jacket, but everything else you've got to wear. So even in our free time, we weren't allowed to sit out and have a little sunbathe. We were still, wearing the fucking full gear. And I was like, I want to be on a beach in a bikini. This is shit. Like, I remember sitting thinking that. And yeah, fine, great in the winter, it probably serves you well. But actually, for me, when we were doing our circuit training, those boots were shit. Why weren't we allowed to wear a pair of trainers? Life would have been much easier. We got blisters from those boots. We had to do boot marches with weighted backpack. My feet were knackered. People would get sent to the medical centre for blisters because he could get infected and he'd get that big from the boots and stuff, that they had to get the blisters drained so that it wouldn't cause a problem for the training. So as time went by, a lot of people would be missing from the training that morning because they'd be at the med centre. And actually, females were more prone to breaking their hips as well, hips and legs during the training. So a lot of people would be walking around with crutches and things like that, even just during the training, because it actually put a lot of wear and tear on the body.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, I understand you've got to be fit and healthy to be in the service, but it knackers up your body sometimes, you know? And yeah, I remember one time doing the boot march with the weights, and my feet would get a blister from the boots. But you're not allowed to stop. Oh yeah, you've got to keep going with the pace. You've got to keep going. And the blister burst while I was doing the boot march, and then it started rubbing on the back of the boots because it was on the heel of my foot, and I was in so much pain. It was like raw skin rubbing on the fucking boot. But you're not allowed to stop. You've got to go. You've got to keep going, and that was awful. It's making me cringe thinking about it now. Like, like you know, that could have easily got infected. You know, like just
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah, they didn't get, yeah,
that.
exactly. They did not really care too much. I hear you.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
and God knows what they did to
So
the
what
food.
happened? Why didn't you finish your
Oh yeah, all right. So what happened was I kept getting paperwork because we didn't do all the push-ups and press-ups as punishment. We ended up getting paperwork, and when that builds up and collects up, you're a bad girl or boy, you know. Then you get taken out of your training. So what happened with me was what what happened was in the morning you're that tired and rushed to be on time or 5 minutes early actually to meet the corporal that we had to lock our lockers with these locks you get from the on-site store, and I brought some with me as well, and they kept fucking jamming on me or freezing up or failing, so I couldn't really lock the locker that well. So what I would do is, of course, in a rush and stuff, I would just like make it look like it was locked, and then I'd rush off to get breakfast and meet corporal, you know, because you all got to stand up and stand to attention and wait for corporals to come along with his little stick, like, good morning, recruits, you know, like kind of thing. And so I did that a couple of times. And what would happen is when we were out for the day doing training and, you know, eating in the canteen and everything like that, the corporals would come into our bed spaces into the barracks and inspect everything. How had you made your bed? Had you tucked the sheets in the way that they wanted, like a parcel shape? Had you done your hoovering? You know, every fucking thing, they would inspect it, wouldn't they? And sometimes they'd check if your locker was locked appropriately. Otherwise, it was a security risk, a hazard, and they can't have that. So I'd get in trouble because they'd find out I hadn't locked it properly, when in fact it wasn't even my fault. It was the shit lockers they sold on the fucking on-base store that kept freezing up. So I came back one day from training and I was tired. It was 7 o'clock at night. You know, all I wanted to do was slump on the bed and be like, couldn't slump on my bed because the corporals had thrown everything across the fucking room. My mattress, my pillow, my fucking sheets. They'd just come in and fucking thrown everything. My shoes. I had to scrabble around trying to find my boots, see if I had a matching pair because it just been fucking decimated. Because I had a locker insecurity, they found out. They dragged all my clothes out of the locker, fucking threw that all over the place. And I was like, oh my God, I can't be arsed. I can't be fucked with this. Oh, I was like so tired. So that was one of the reasons, right? So that gave me paperwork. It's like being in school. Then another reason was we all went out on the piss one weekend because we were allowed off base. So we all went to London. Well, we were training in London, but we went to a place called Milton Keynes, which is can't remember, a couple of hours away from the base. We went and partied all weekend, got drunk. And because of the training with the chemical, radiological, biological warfare suits, they had black chalk lining. And we'd have to practice getting them on and off really quick, you know, timed and everything. And my nails were rotten. They were filthy from the charcoal lining. So because we were going out on the Raz, and we were drinking and, you know, oh yeah, we'll go on the pull, do you know what I mean? Like try and chat up a few guys and girls, like, you know, we're sex starved, you know, that kind of mentality. I wanted to polish my nails so that I didn't have black fucking nails. So I put some nail polish on, and then we ended up getting back onto base the Sunday night, and I said, girls, I forgot to buy some nail varnish remover because you're not allowed to wear nail varnish or makeup or anything. Has anybody got any? No, we haven't got any nail varnish remover. And I was like, oh shit. So I was like picking it off as much as I could, but it wouldn't come off properly. So the next day I was having to hide my nails, from the corporals. Like I would stand to attention and with me like fists enclosed and everything like that, right? Like I got away with it the whole day, and then at the end of the day we had to unload our guns, to put it away back into the storage room and stuff like that. And the corporal would stand and watch one by one and make sure that you're doing it properly. So it came to my turn, and I'm unloading it and I'm doing the whole routine, and put the rifle back, and then we all stood up in line waiting to march back to base. Because that's one thing they make you do as well, isn't it? You have to march all in time with each other and in a block formation, so that you're all sort of together. Like it's very robotic, isn't it? Would you say? You've got to all be the same. Like even when you're walking, you've got to walk the fucking same. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like that, isn't it? So we were all lined up, getting ready to get marched, and then you were like, Christ, 937, step to the front. And it was silent. Everyone was watching me, and I stepped to the front, and I was like, what the fuck? Why the fuck have you still got fucking nail varnish on? And I was like, oh, did he see me when I was unloading the fucking gun, didn't he? And I was like, I don't know, sir. Go and fucking take that off right now. You're a disgrace, and you've got no military bearing. Look at the state of your fucking uniform. Fix your hat, fix your belt. You look like a fucking mess. And I'm there trying to fix everything, and he's like, look at the state of that fucking beret. You can't even do it properly, can you? And I'm there going, ah, like they're struggling. Anyway, he sent me away on my own to go back, and I was walking back, and he went, you can fucking run, start running. And I went, ah. And I was like, ah. Anyway, I started crying. I'm like, ah, ah. Like I'm calling mum. Ah. I was just so tired and upset, and I called mum, and I was like, Mum, I'm just so over it. Like, it's stupid. It's just fucking stupid. Like, it's nail varnish. Like that. Anyway, I was like, I'm over it. I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm going. It's funny when I think back on it, but at the time you're so tired, you're so drained, everything is just blown out of proportion, you know what I mean? Everything's just a big deal.
Well, I don't think it was just the nail polish either, obviously, in that incident, because if you really cared and wanted to be there, you would have remembered. You know what I mean? It's like, so you didn't give a shit. You were just like, whatever. And then you were just like, fuck it. This, fuck this. That's kind of what the impression I'm getting, especially because you questioned everything that they did. They were probably happy you left.
I think they were. And so then you have to go and see the padre if you wanted to leave. Like the padre was like the church priest guy, because they really push religion on you in England. Like,
oh yeah, same thing in the Marine Corps in the States here. And I also want to say that they also said military bearing a lot, so that is something that must be universal. And they called the guy the chaplain, but you call him the padre. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was a whole thing. You can't just leave. You can't just be like, I'm fucking off. There's a process. You've got to wait maybe 2 weeks. Anyway, so I'd made that decision, and I got taken in to see like the flight attendant. I can't remember his name now. I had to sit and wait outside like the headmaster's office, and you've got to salute when you go in and meet him, and then he's got to salute you. So what I did, I thought, I'm going to make this fucker pay. So I went in and I saluted like that. And I did it for ages, and I stood there and I was like, yeah, I'm not taking my hand down. You can't either, because until I take my hand down, you can't. So I stood there for ages, and I made it awkward, and he's looking at me and he's going, I'm like, yeah, you fucker. I'm going to make you wait. And I was like, yeah. I was like, anyway, we had the chat, and they were like, yeah, you're on your last warning, blah, blah, blah. Then I was allowed to go and do rifle training, and they came down in a fucking Jeep and pulled me out of class, and they were like, right, you've been taken off your training. You're not going to stay where you are. You've been taken out of your training. And I was like, what for? And they were like, all your paperwork's just built up, and you basically just shit. And then I was like, all right, fair enough. And then they were like, so you've got to start. You've done 3 months now. you got to start all the way back to the very fucking beginning, back to day 00. And I was like, are you having a laugh? I'm not fucking doing that. And they were like, yeah, well, you should give it a go, because if you do, then it'll just be so easy for you now. You'll know exactly what to do. It'll be just like a walk in the park, and you can be the new leader, because you know more than they do, and you can lead the next ones. Selling it to me to stay, kind of thing. So I went, all right, fine, I'll give it a go. I'm not making you any promises, but I'll try it. And I did, and I was just like, can't be fucking bothered. I was just tired. I was just over it, and I was like falling asleep during the classes and literally hallucinating because I was that tired. I was like falling asleep in class and seeing things. I like looked at the guy next to me, and he was like this purple fucking goblin, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I swear down, I've never been that tired where I hallucinated. And I was like, this is wrong. Not only that, actually, did you go into the CS gas chamber by any chance?
Oh yeah, definitely. We were in the gas chamber. Yeah. And they made sure that they made sure that we got some gas too, because they made us take our gas masks off, and then they were like asking us questions and all this shit. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's exactly what happened to us. We had to take it off and talk, and they were like, right, you've got to, they were like, we're going to do a point of the finger like that, and whoever we land on, you're the person to take your mask off and come forward and answer all the questions. But we're all stood there, and we're watching his hand go like this, and he's closing his eyes, and we're all stood there going, fucking hope it's not me next, like, fucking hell, like, we're there going, like, God, 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 because we have to watch the person struggling to breathe before us, and we're like, oh, it's going to be here. Like, scared. I think I was like third out of a group of 10 of us, and I was like, fucking hell, God. You got to take it off and answer the questions, and you're slowly choking, aren't you? You're like, your eyes are streaming, your nose is streaming, and then they just drag you out by the fucking uniform and say, walk around the tree 3 times, regain your composure, get back to normal. And as they throw you out, all the other corporals are stood there taking pictures of you, like laughing at you and stuff. Like, it's like another humiliation thing.
Yeah, it's funny because now that I say that, I remember, I think I have a video I think they gave us a video we could buy, and part of it was us coming out of the gas chamber, and they videotaped it. They had, yeah, wow, that's crazy. It's another humiliation ritual. I never realized that.
Yeah, it makes you feel stupid. Sometimes if you do something wrong, they would send you out into the corridor and walk like a duck in front of everybody's class and start quacking like a duck if you'd done something stupid. And it
Oh,
was
I would have
funny.
loved that. I would have did that on purpose. So I'm like, all right. Whack, whack, whack. They would
Yeah.
have like, stop. I was like, whack.
Yeah, so I ended up leaving just because I called mum crying, and I was like, well, I'm fucking over it. They put me in a gas chamber. Like, I should have listened to people. Like, I wasn't really supposed to really go through that shit. Like, I'm a strong person, and I did get broken. I did get broken, and that's what they want. They break you down so that you're so pummeled to the ground, they can build you up to be this killer machine or whatever they want you to be.
Yeah,
And
whatever they want you to be.
yeah, I just got broken, and then I was just like, nah, fuck this, like, nah, I'm not having it, you know what I mean? I like can't be fucked. So then I just left. Yeah, I just it took me a couple of days to get out, and I was allowed because we had a 6 month breakout clause, you know what I mean? Like, if you really hate life that much, you can just leave in the first 6 months. And me and a couple of other people ended up leaving, and it wasn't for us. But I did have an element of disappointment of being a failure. I failed at that task. I failed at getting into the military, and what they would do is we had our 2 different sets of uniform. We had the camo print, which we did all our training in, and then you get to a certain level of your training where you wear your blues. Your blues is your royals, your shirt, your smart shirt, you look nice, and everything's navy blue, royal blue, pale blue sort of thing. And what they would do, they would showcase that, like when you said earlier, where they showcase things. When I went back to the very, day 00, and I was so close to wearing my blues. I was so close to getting to that point, but I had to go back to the camos, and they would put us all everybody on base, they would put us all in this sort of these lines. So we'd have another pep talk, and you would progress towards the front the further along you were. And then all of my group, who I would done all my training with, were in their blues, and they were all stood at the front, and I was back at the very back in my camo. And I was like, fuck, like, fucking hell, look what's happened to me, kind of thing. And actually, the guy, I can't remember his name now, flight lieutenant, whatever, came up to me. They inspect your uniform. Did you ever have that where they look you up and down and inspect you and tell you what's wrong? And he came up and he went, "Yeah, Grice, yeah, I've heard about you. Like where did fucking got around? You know what I mean?" I was like, it was a humiliation thing again. But yeah, basically, long story short, that's what happened to me. That's why I didn't stay. But I know I wasn't supposed to stay. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all part of it. They have to humiliate you if you get out because you have to seem like a failure to other people, you know, like, so I get
Yeah.
it. And then also not accomplishing something overall, you know, it makes you feel like shit. I know a guy that, he was from Connecticut, actually, the same state as me. So we took the same airplane and everything down, and he broke his leg like 2 weeks before we were going to graduate, and he didn't get to graduate because he just got sent home because it was really bad. So, well,
Did he
actually, he
break
had to
his leg
stay
during
there.
training?
Yeah, during training. Yeah, well, that's all we did was train. So, but yeah, we were he was running through the woods and he tripped and fell, and
Oh,
yeah, he actually ended up staying there for like a couple months because he had to wait for his leg to heal and everything properly. So yeah, it's brutal too because you get sent to like this other platoon and you're basically just in transit, you know, like
we
you're
had
in
that.
limbo. I mean, you're in limbo. Yeah.
We had that. The transit. It was like a coloured, like the green something or whatever. You know.
Yeah, we had the MRP, and that was all the people who were hurt. They were like the broken Marines, we called them or whatever. It's like the Island of Misfit Toys, and they would hang out, and then they would either get better or not. Yeah, we'd see them it was crazy.
Yeah, they were still paid though, weren't they? They were like paid to just sit and do
Yeah,
physio and wait, and then there came a time, a cut-off point where it's like, right, it's been 2 months, you're not healing, fuck off, like
yeah, exactly,
like
exactly.
that.
We had a fat platoon too. They called it PTP or P, I don't know, whatever, but it was everyone who was overweight because he had to be a certain weight, and they had enough
Yeah,
time to like lose the weight or keep going.
that's strange because normally you have to do a fitness test before you sign up.
Yeah, well, they do, but you know, some people get there and they either gain weight while they're there, or they're close to the line and they're not making any improvements. So that's where they
Mm.
get sent. Yeah,
On that note, actually, I want to just quickly talk about the diet while you're doing your training and stuff like that, because you obviously have to eat on site from their canteen and stuff. Me and the girls noticed a change in our bowel movement. I'm just gonna have to be blunt about that. We were noticing an absolute change in our toilet habits and like the way we were going to the toilet out. We were like, girls, have you noticed it's a bit more difficult to go to the toilet these days? And when you do, it's like fucking different. And they were like, yeah. I even noticed like my periods changed at like, and I was like, what the fuck are they doing to the food, man? Because periods are changing, fucking toilet habits are changing. Like, I don't know to this day still what was going on there, but
well, they gave us a lot of vaccines too. They vaccinated the shit out of us. So I have no idea what the fuck they gave us. So I was talking about this last night with friends. They had like an air gun, kind of like you'd see in like Star Trek. They'd hit you with a needle. It's just like, psh, you know. But they had this. It was like it had air pressure, or I mean, an air hose and everything. And we were just lined up, and we walked by, and they just psh, and they just hit everybody. And it got up to me, I'm like, is this even sanitary? And they're just like, psh, all right, next. I'm like, all right, like, yeah,
really, did the same thing for everybody.
yeah. It was forced air, and I guess it would just go right through your skin.
Ah,
Yeah,
oh,
it's brutal.
oh,
We were basically animals. It was. Did you have to get vaccinated and stuff too?
yeah, I've actually got another story about that. That's probably another reason why they hated me and where it got around. We didn't get it as roughly as you did. It's that brutal. Oh, it's making me cringe. I'm like holding my arms, like cradling my arms. Like, oh. We had to go to med center and get. We did have all the vaccinations. Even if you've already had them in your life, you still have to get it again. So we used to get that. and everybody would have little cotton swabs on their arms and stuff, but I refused them because I've been watching more Pasio, and I was like, "Ain't no way you're fucking jabbing me with that shit!" Like, I didn't know what's in there, but I refused them. I was like, "Nah, I'm not getting them," and they didn't like that. I ended up being in a room, and three fucking nurses were like literally crowding me, like with the fucking needle, like ready to stab me, like, you should do it. It's for you. Good, that kind of thing. And I was like, nah, I'm not getting it. I don't want them. I don't want these fucking back. But yeah, generally, yeah, you're supposed to get all your blood tests done and your vaccinations for, what was it, yellow fever and
Yeah, fucking for the boogeyman. Who knows? Unfortunately, there were no anti-vaxxing movements in 1994, so I had no. I'm like, oh, this is great. Shoot me with some more. Can I just get one in my eye? Will it make me feel better? Like, yeah, I don't.
yeah, it's all free, like fucking brilliant. I'm
Yeah, oh,
amused.
this is great. And every year, oh yeah, like we had every year we would get there was one that really hurt. I forgot what it was, but it like got your whole arm and like it was tight for days. It was crazy.
Oh yeah, and did you ever get the other recruits punching each other in the arm for a laugh? Like, you just had your backs, like.
Oh yeah, we would beat the shit out of each other. It was great. But it's so it go
Sorry,
ahead.
it's a really good point to bring up about the vaccinations. I've forgotten about that one. Yeah, you get jabbed to fuckery, don't you?
Yeah. We're like pincushions in there. It was crazy. They didn't care. It was free. I don't think I got flu shots though. I don't know if they were even giving. I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure I probably would not get a flu shot. Like even then I was like, like I don't care.
Yeah, that's the point in them. I think there's been some stories about some people in the States getting some sort of tests done on them with anthrax as well, and they've sued. They've actually successfully managed to sue, if I'm correct.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
right. I forgot about that. The anthrax vaccine was actually coming out while I was in, and they were making it mandatory for people to get. And then I got out right before they were making people get it. I got really lucky, and a lot of people got fucked up from that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I heard that. Yeah, so it's kind of like you're like a lab rat kind of thing.
yeah, and that's
People.
exactly what I was saying. I'm like, what in the hell? So at least I had a little bit of wherewithal about me. I was just like, anthrax. That just doesn't sound like a fucking. That's a great
Yeah.
band, but I don't want anything injected into my arms. Were
God,
there
yeah.
were there any other topics that we didn't cover? Because we've been going for a good time
Yeah,
now. I
so
don't
we
want
were
to.
just going to talk about what happens when you leave, when you get out and you return back to civvy life, as they like to call it in England, and how it feels for some people, when they've left and their experiences and other things. I mean, I'm sure you had a different experience because you seem still, still like a happy person, and
Well, I'm going to
you know.
say that a lot of what I experienced in the negativeness side that I didn't even think about was loneliness because when you're in the Marine Corps, there's always somebody to go hang out with. In my experience, it was anyway, like in my squadron, um, if somebody's busy, I could just go knock on someone else's door. Like I had a bunch of friends. So I always had somebody that when I came home, it's not like I didn't have friends, but when you're in the Marine Corps in the same squadron, everyone has there's two schedules, night crew, day crew. So it's like we all know what you're doing. You know what I mean? But and then I got back here and everyone has their own life and all this stuff. So there is this big detachment. And, I'm kind of an introvert anyway. So for me, I don't think it affected me as much, but it did. I mean, I had some friends here that I hung out with stuff, but I could just imagine what it would be like for somebody who did this, even if they did longer, 4, 10, 20 years, whatever it is. And then you get out and it's like, you don't always have somebody right there to talk to, whether even if you're in 20 years and you don't have friends, there's someone that has to talk to you because you have high rank, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's one of the things. And, you could talk about how the VA, which is the Veterans Administration Hospital, how I mean, it got better from what it used to be, but it's still a nightmare that, you're just still a number. The people there, I'm sure, are great people and they're doing their best, but the funding and just the way it's set up, it's not set up for the humane care that you think a veteran would deserve. You're really trying to give them all this thanks. So I'll just leave it that way. And so people talk about that though, that's all the stuff that people talk about and we know about, but what they don't really focus on is that when you get out, it's that camaraderie, that friendship that's might be missing out of your life. And that loneliness is just going to add to anything else that you might have went through. Now we talked about how you disassociate and how you evacuate your cockpit and how you just kind of do things. And then if you're lonely and you have all this time to think about it, that's when it's going to come back to you. And in my opinion, that's when it's really would get to you, you know?
Yeah, there's a really good scene. I think it's in that movie Black Hawk Down. I think it's that movie where he's got a post traumatic stress, and he goes back to his wife and his kid for a little while, and he goes to the shop, the store, as you call it, the supermarket, and he's walking down the aisle and he's seeing all the packets of Cheerios and everything's normal, and you've got the little doodle doo 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 music in the supermarket, and he's like, what the fuck is this? Like, he's like bewildered by it, and because it's he's not used to doing that and living like that. And that scene really um kind of depicts for me how someone would feel when they've saved for that long and they come back to normality, and it just feels like alien to them. They can't even do a normal thing like go to a supermarket without it feeling like some big deal or some really maniacal thing, or what, you know what I mean? Like that, like especially if you leave and you've got some trauma, which is if you've been gassed, or that's part of what the gas chamber is part of the trauma. It's to traumatize you. It's a submission as well in the training, isn't it, as well? And I'm sure that a lot of stuff happens where it does leave, it has a long lasting impact on your mental, emotional and physical health. So when you leave, you're still affected by what you've been through.
Yeah.
And if you were also, we were talking about earlier, you know, if you, even the job market, when you leave and you go back to Civvy Street, it's not that simple to leave and find a job because your credentials and experience doesn't match the civilian world, does it?
A lot of times, yeah. I mean, sometimes here in the States, it's different because people like the military experience because they know that they know at least you could do that, then you could probably do what they, you know what I mean? Like you made it through 4 years, you could probably handle this job and you're be on time and all that stuff. But a lot of the stuff doesn't translate over. Like I was talking before we started about military police, a lot of police forces don't really want ex-military police because they do things differently, and it's really harder for them to untrain someone and then to retrain them in the tactics. And they know this. I mean, things are getting different now. They're probably going to. I said this too. They're probably going to be recruiting a lot more military police now, but
Mm.
before we were all masked up slaves. Not all of us, but you know what I'm talking about. The police is a little. I mean, I guess it's still, it's around here. It's not much, but in the cities, it's getting a little more militarized. But yeah, that it doesn't like. And for instance, for a great example, I worked on ejection seats in the Marine Corps. I mean, what am I going to do when I get out? You can't really get a job working on ejection seats in the civilian world. I could have definitely got a job in the air, um, something working on airplanes just because I have experience and I've been around airplanes, but it wouldn't be anything that would directly go to it.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to bring up another point as well. So, I think obviously you saved what 4 or 5 years. A lot of people save the full 22 years in the Air Force because you get your pension. Like that's another thing that they sell to you. Save for the 22 years and you'll end up getting your pension, so you don't even have to worry about that. Like that kind of thing. And there was this guy, one of the corporals, who saved 21 years, and they were doing a lot of cuts in the military at that point. And so then they were like, yeah, you saved 21 years, but you can't do 22 because we're going to get rid of you. So you're not even going to get your pension. You know what I mean? Like they'd screwed him over. He'd fucking like waited and done everything. And the very last minute, they decided, nah, you're not going to get your pension because we're cutting the funding. So sorry you did all those years, but you know what I mean? No, like fuck yeah. So he got screwed over. That happened to a lot of people actually. So, but back to the point, I feel like the longer you've been in there, you've been saving for. Imagine you save for 22 years, right? That's like over 2 decades of your life. That's a big portion of your life. You'd be so used to the way things are there and have the experience 22 years with. It would be even more difficult for you to rejoin normality in that sense, wouldn't it? I
Yeah,
think the longer
yeah.
you've done it, the more difficult it is.
Plus, so many people get used to the whole routine of it, and then everything's taken care of, their food, all that stuff. So they become so dependent on it that it's like, I seen it too. And that's why a lot of people didn't get out when I got out, and I would like stressing trying to, I had this one saying, because when you get out, they call EAS, they call it the end of active service. If you get out, like, and you're not retiring, if you just sign up for 4 years. So I had this slogan, I would say yes to EAS. And then, like, we'd write it down. Everyone would just be like, "Say yes to EAS." It was, oh, dude, it was great. I got so many people to get out. I got my gunnery sergeant to get out. He was like, "I'm gonna change your attitude." And then by the time I was done with him, he was like, "I'm getting out." So I did my job. It was great. He's like, "Fuck this! I
Brilliant.
got a family." He did. I was like, "I did my time. It's getting in." And to his point, because he was in during the '80s and stuff, and it was different. There was a big shift going forward, like through the early '90s to the mid '90s, and it got a lot of different people. Like you said, they would get fucked over, and I saw people get burned over the stupidest little things. They'd make little mistakes, and they would just ruin their whole career over it. So
Really?
that's the reason why I got out. Yeah. So it's just, that's really, there's no real loyalty there. Maybe the people with you, and that's really what it is. People, when you talk to them that have been in war, a lot of them are saying, I'm just fighting for the guy next to me. I'm fighting for the guy in my foxhole. And those are the people you can really rely on. So that's the one part that I will never um, be sorry about that I joined, because I did make a lot of good friendships, and I met a lot of interesting people, and some people I still talk to on Facebook and stuff. And, it was a great experience because of that. But I think that it's good to know what you're going to get into, because it's not what they tell you. There's
Yeah,
so many
exactly.
things to think about. So
Yeah,
yeah,
there is a dark side, definitely. It does feel like you're making a deal with the devil.
yeah, for sure. And it's something that's, it's happened all throughout history. There's always been armies raised, militaries raised for one reason or other, some kind of conquest. I mean, if it's in defense, it's a little different, but when you have a standing army ready to go for no reason, you're going to find a reason, but
Exactly. And my
yeah,
point is, you don't see the politicians and the monarchy fighting these fucking battles.
yeah, never.
No one's ever got an answer for that. Why aren't they on the front line then? If they want this war so much and they want to fight this guy and
I
stick
think
them
what
in
didn't one of
a
your
ring.
princes get close? Didn't what Prince Henry or one of those guys? Didn't he get, or William or one of them? Didn't he take a helicopter ride in and like fly around with the guys in Afghanistan one time?
Yeah, I think it was Prince William,
William,
but
yeah.
then they ended up deciding it was too dangerous for him, and
Yeah, it's too dangerous.
yeah, they
But
had to
guess
lower.
what? Guess what? We'll send your fucking kid there. Fuck you, you fucking piece of shit. It's too dangerous. Come here for a second. I got something that's too dangerous. Come here. That's what I want to say to these people. I don't know.
Exactly, and people they can't answer that. Well, we need them. They're important, right? So 16-year-old fucking whoever Matthew has left school. He's not important. No, he's not important to his
Yeah.
family.
And that goes
You know.
against everything that we talk about too with natural law and all that stuff, and just all rights and just being a human. We're all supposed to be equal according to the eyes of our creator, God, the Constitution, whatever you want to say, Declaration of Independence. We're all supposed to be evil, but these people, sometimes the presidents will be like, "Oh, I was in the military," but it's like they flew a plane, and then you find out it wasn't what you thought it was. So, yeah, I just think it's just ridiculous, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and like we've said, we've got no regrets, but we just wouldn't encourage anybody to join either. I wouldn't encourage anybody to do it because even with the police, they have a shorter training at 6 weeks, but still the same effect. You're still having your brain rewired. You're still being pummeled down and traumatized and whatever else, And they say you've got to be like this because you're going to be on the battlefield, and that's true. But there's a lot more to it than that as well. There's a lot more to why they do what they do. So we just wanted to. I know you had a pretty positive experience, but we still wouldn't encourage.
Well, I think it's good that I had a positive experience, but I could still tell people not to join. You know what I mean? Because anybody could go there and get their hand blown off and say, "Don't join. This sucks." But I could be like, "Hey, I had a good time." But guess what? Don't And the thing is, I don't want to say, this is the thing. I don't want to sit here and tell anybody what to do. But if there's reasons why you want to join, and we kind of, if we debunked any of those reasons right now, then maybe you should really start thinking about not joining. And the other thing I want to talk about was there's other ways to, because when I remember when I was younger, I felt like there was this calling that I had. There was like this itch that I had to scratch. And there's other ways to do that. You don't have to join the military. There's other ways to get discipline, training. You could do all this stuff. You can get weapons training, whatever you want to do. Um,
Mm.
you just don't have to rely on the military. You could find people who are ex-military to train you. That's probably one of the best ways, and you can get experience from them.
Absolutely agree, and that's a great point that you bring up. I'd just like to add that with me, wanting to travel, that was one of the big reasons. I loved airplanes. I wanted to travel. I've done all that, and I did it without the military, and I did it in my own time. I went wherever I wanted to go, stayed for as long as I wanted, fucked off whenever I wanted. Didn't have anybody telling me where to go and when and how long for. I've been to so many different countries, and I took my son with me, and we've had the best time of our lives traveling together. I didn't have to stick him in some boarding school and do it while, you know what I mean? Like you said, there are other ways. If you want to work on an airplane, be an air hostess. If you want to fix planes, you can fix planes. Working at the airport or for a
Mm.
company, an engineering company, even maybe.
Just go whatever you want to do. Go hang out there. If you want to fly planes, go to the fucking local airport and go to the school and go like make friends with people. Like that's how you do it. Go there and
Yeah,
sweep up and be cool. I don't know, whatever.
yeah, you're right. Get your
Especially if
foot in
you're
the door.
young, if you're young, that's what I would suggest to do. Go to these places and hang out. And if they try to get rid of you, just hang out and show them that you're honest and you're willing to work on stuff. And everybody needs an extra hand, and everybody likes somebody who's going to listen and be cool. And that's what I would suggest to do. Listen, and you can learn so much, and it's way better than joining the military, signing a contract, putting your life on the line for whatever reason you don't even know. So that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you've got your own free will and choice when you're not in the military as well. I mean, you are own, like you said. Sorry, I just like to bring up one more thing. You said about doing when you left. You don't just fully leave, do you? You can still get called up if there's a major war. You still on
Yeah,
file.
I almost got called up after 9/11. My service, which was the inactive reservist status, expired like a month before they started calling all those people back up. And even in Vietnam, they didn't call it the inactive reservist. That was the way they would like sell it to you, like, oh, it's 4 years active and then 4 years inactive. But they started a draft before they called those people last time. Well, guess what? This time they called those people first. So I was lucky to
Ooh,
avoid that situation. Yeah, because after 9/11, they were getting fired up.
yeah, that's really lucky. But yeah, like you brought up that point, and even in the reserves, when you do it after work or whatever, I think they still have that thing where if you leave the reserves, you're still liable to get called up. So you're never really truly
Oh
free
yeah.
from
They
time.
use reservists here all the time, and that's what they started doing in Afghanistan. And when I was in, they never called up reservists, and they went from never doing it to doing it all, like making it now. When you join the reservists, you might as well join the. So basically, the reservists now are, if you go active duty, you'll go away for 6 months or a year on a tour, and then you come back and you're on a base for 6 months a year. But now if you're like reservist, you just go away on a tour for a year, and then when you come back, you stay home. That's basically it. And you train once a month. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no more
You
true reservists because we need our reserves to control the world, apparently. I don't know, whatever they're doing. So
know,
is
the
there
one
anything?
yeah, just before we go,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
an
please.
idea to get ex-police personnel on one day to talk about their training, because it's a similar thing, but we just don't have much experience with that. So that could be an idea for a future podcast one day, is to bring someone who's been in the police and who's willing to talk about it and be honest the way that we are, because we're not afraid to be honest about it, and we're not scared, and nothing's gonna, I don't think anything's gonna happen to us. I'm not scared to speak out about it anymore. I used to be, but not now. So we could, well, I'm going to do a bit of homework and see if I could do that. And if there's anybody that wants to email me or Brandon and or write a comment at the bottom of the video and is willing to say, that would be a good idea. What do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to talk to somebody to find out exactly what the training is with the police. Because
Mm.
also from the psychological angle, I'd like to know, because there's things that I'm learning from the law point of view, and I'm wondering what they would think about that too if I brought some of those things up. But yeah, that's a great thing. So yeah, if anyone's listening, go to morelawsmoreproblems.com. It's definitely a good way to contact us. Or if you know Kayleigh, you know how to get a hold of her or me. So do that. And or you got anything else before we wrap this up? I want to make
I
sure.
don't do it. I think we've pretty much covered everything and more. Everything
Awesome.
and more.
All right, great. Well, you guys know where to find us, and Thank you so much for listening to us and tell our stories about the military. We'll be back more because we want to talk about the symbolism and stuff of that of the military and all the stuff that they use. And also, we could probably add into that like the names of operations that they have because they have like different operations in the Middle East and they have all these weird names for them. So I think that'd be cool to get into some of those too.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so we're going to have a part two of this where we're going to do some slides and show you exactly the symbology of everything as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, until we talk again, everybody, thank care and thank care. Thank you and take care.
Thank you. That's good.
And check out my website at morewallsmoreproblems.com. All right. Bye, guys.
See ya.